Hi, this is Tim Queenie, the editor of Ocean Navigator magazine, and we're talking with Ken McKinley, who is the author of A Powerful Weather Resource, an article about pilot charts in our current issue, the July-August issue. Ken, welcome aboard.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. Why don't you talk a little bit about your background or what you do at Locus Weather? What do you do every day at Locus Weather?
Well, what I'm doing is forecasting the weather for clients of many different types, and a lot of them are actually ocean voyagers. I do a lot of work for people who are moving from point A to point B on the oceans, be that from, say, the northeastern U.S. to Bermuda and or the Caribbean, or across to Europe, do some Pacific work up and down the west coast of the United States, people going to the South Pacific, Gulf of Mexico, basically anywhere in the world where people need to have some help making good decisions. And that's really what it's all about, is making good decisions about the weather and about how it might affect your particular ocean voyage.
And presumably doing that, you're using the latest communications techniques and the best, newest data you can get your hands on.
That's right. There's a lot of data sources now, in fact, a huge number compared to just a generation ago. And we have many computer models which we have access to of many different sorts. We have a lot of satellite data that covers the globe, and a lot of ship observations as well that give us a really good idea as to what's going on out in the oceans.
And of course, pilot charts are go way back. They've been around for decades, going back into the 19th century. So as a weather routing professional, how often do you use pilot charts?
Well, for day-to-day weather, they're not used very often. What they're really useful for, though, is for long-term planning. And so from time to time, I may get a call from a client, say at this time of the year, and we're talking here at the end of June, saying that they would like to make a voyage sometime in September or October. And that's when the pilot charts become useful, because we can take a look and see what the average conditions are for various parts of the ocean really at any time of the year. And that's not going to be a specific prediction for a specific voyage, but it just gives the voyager an idea of what they might expect, how often, for example, they might encounter gale force winds, or how often they might encounter significant wave heights greater than 12 feet. What's the most likely wind direction that they're likely to see across portions of their passage? And by looking at that information, it then becomes much easier to choose a route which is most likely to be one that will have favorable winds and least likely to have adverse conditions. And
so pilot charts, of course, in the form that we usually use them is the printed form. They're pretty amazing examples of stacking a lot of information onto a printed chart or a printed map. Are there digital versions of pilot charts available?
There are, and you can find them online. And in the article that I wrote, I gave the link to do that. And you can download them for each ocean basin for each month, and they are PDF files. They are fairly large, not so much in megabytes or kilobytes, but just in terms of the physical size of them, so that when you get to look at them on your computer screen, if they're shrunk down to the size of the computer screen, they are a little hard to read. Now, of course, you can zoom in and see various parts of the ocean, but that's what makes the printed ones so nice, because they are about 20 inches by 30 inches roughly, and you can spread them out over a table and take a look at them, and it makes a really nice way to look at the data and learn an awful lot about the particular ocean basin that you might be interested in making a voyage in.
And do you think pilot charts will continue to be printed in the future?
Well, I'm not sure. Of course, a lot of things are going in a digital way, and so it may be that you may have to print them from a digital file, and of course, in order to do that and make them useful, you'd have to find a fairly large printer, which may mean going to a service bureau or something of that nature. The last time most of them were updated was in the early 2000s, I believe, and some of them going back into the 1990s. So they haven't been printed in newer editions recently in some cases, but they're still valid, they're still useful, and they are still available right now. As far as government publications go, it's very difficult to predict what the government is going to do. So I guess my advice would be that if you can get your hands on a copy of them, a hard copy of them, I would buy them now. They're not terribly expensive. Usually they can be had for somewhere in the $30 to $40 range. So if you think you're going to need them and you find them, then I would buy them.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, Ken. It's Ken McKinley of Locus Weather in Camden, Maine. And thanks for talking with us